Welcome, welcome. And that's a clip from tonight's episode of The Flash on the CW. Very excited to see that. And I guess my first question for you is,
Yes, sir.
I'm a fan of your work from the past, from the present, from the future, from an alternate Earth.
Nice.
How many versions of Harrison Wells do you have to play before you finally get an Emmy for it?
Well, how long is time is the answer to that question when you talk about it. Emmy Award. Here's the great thing about doing a superhero show like this. You can get killed off, you're not dead. You know, you can play one character, but you don't have to play just one character. You can play 2, 3, 4, 5, ad nauseum. Maybe nauseum is the wrong word, but I think one of the joys of doing a show like this is be able to kick the can in so many different ways.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, we've seen.
Can you see his ring, by the way? You see Aaron's ring? It's very strong.
Rockin' the Flash ring.
Man has it, yeah.
Sadly, it does not improve my time on my runs in the morning. So, but yeah, with Harrison Wells, we saw this version, a couple versions in season 1, and now, of course, we're seeing Harry in season 2. What are some of the ways that you have altered and differentiated these characters? We've seen the voice, of course, and he speaks a lot less, but what are some other ways that Harry is different from the other versions of Harrison?
Well, the first guy, the first Harrison, wasn't even really Harrison. He was a disguise. The reason I signed on to the show was to play the guy that he really was, Eobard Thawne, the Reverse Flash. And, you know, it was interesting because the joy of playing that was putting on a yellow supersuit and running around and punching the lights out of Barry Allen. And when crafting's a dumb word, that sounds pretentious, but when preparing the new guy, the first Harrison seemed like a erudite, sociable, kind of an enjoyable person to be with, a bit of a mentor for Barry. He seemed like a good person, and when, in fact, he was disguising the fact that he was the most evil person in the multiverse. And when doing this guy, I thought, well, it'd be nice to do the mirror opposite of that. You know, so go from good guy who's actually evil to evil-seeming guy who's actually good. And so, you know, this season's Harrison Wells is a man with no social graces. He's antagonistic. He doesn't care to get along with people. He wants what he wants. He wants to protect his daughter, and after that, he's not interested in any social niceties. But when push comes to shove, he is a guy who will, you know, probably do what's right.
Mm-hmm. Well, he also gets some fun.
Probably.
The
man also totes around a pulse laser that he gets to like shoot pretty much every episode, and so there you go. That's a pretty good thing right there.
Yeah, and he just carries it around in public. No one notices the giant pulse rifle.
That's an interesting thing when they say, and well, when you read in the script, Wells has his pulse rifle with him, and you're like, really? Is anyone like, what are the cops doing? Excuse me, sir, is that a gun? Yes, it's a very big gun. You know, and do you have a license for that gun? I don't. You know, those are the questions that we don't ask on The Flash.
Yeah. Well, as
Can I say one more thing about the gun that I think is mildly fun? I don't even know if anybody even knows what I'm talking about, but in the show, the character that I play totes around this big pulse laser, and it's a really big behemoth of a gun, and I shoot it off a lot, but there are actually no moving parts on that gun, and yet, to punctuate sentences like, all right, Barry, let's go. I do that all the time, and I know there's an assistant editor. I always hide it from the camera, and I go, so you can't see that I'm not moving anything, but I know there's an assistant editor in the back going, oh, God, now I got to go find some sound effect for this gun, because the gun doesn't actually, when I normally do it, it's just this. Let's go. And so what's nice is he's put in, whoever's responsible for it has put in this, it might be this guy, Jeff, but whoever's responsible has put in this kind of like futuristic sounding, like he's got a little something to it. So that's a little behind the scenes 30-second clip of The Flash. Thank you.
Well, the next level of that is just the one hand pump action a la Sarah Connor, you know. So another kind of person lost in time. So
An I'll be back moment. Yeah, you're right. You're exactly right.
Well, you know, Harry has these great lines, even though he doesn't talk a whole lot. Like he has these great lines, including I remember the Christmas episode where he shows up at a child's door and he says, "Your toys, give them to me."
Which was clearly that was not the way the line was written, but clearly that's. You know, I'm channeling, you know, the great Arnold Schwarzenegger, and like your clothes, give them to me, you know. So I don't know if anyone noticed that, but there's a few of those. There's a Rutger Hauer Blade Runner callback that I do in the season finale of episode 1. That's the spirit. There's a bunch of those things, and we try and give nods and credit where credit's due now and again on The Flash.
Yeah. Is there, and you also had the opportunity to sort of play both Eobard Thawne as Harrison and Harry in one episode where the Flash, Barry Allen, goes back in time. Was that particularly satisfying to go back into Thawne's realm, evil Harrison?
Yeah, for me, the starting point of everything I do is Eobard Thawne. Like that's the nucleus in the center, and I proceed outward from there. That episode you're talking about is 217, in which Barry Allen travels back to ask Earth 1, Harrison Wells, how to get more speed, and tries to do it innocently, but Earth 1, Harrison Wells, chains him to a chair and tries to shove his hand through his chest. So not great. And that was far and away, I think, that was my favorite episode by far to play, like Earth 2 Wells, Earth 1 Wells, and Eobard all at once. I think it was a master craftsmanship by the writers to bring all that in. That's the nice thing about doing a television show is once you've put in 42 hours of work, the audience that is on board sort of understands what you're doing, and they've got the weight of hours and hours and hours of seeing it, and they already are ahead of the game. Like, oh, what if Barry is discovered? And that, I think, for Grant Gustin, who plays Barry Allen, and for me, that was one of the most enjoyable scenes because it was a tete-a-tete, it was a face-off that normally our scenes last a page or two. It was about 6 pages long where we just went after each other, and it just kept shifting. And then on top of it, this is the nice thing about doing a superhero show is it wasn't just two guys facing off. There was also, at the end of it, a Harry Potter-like Dementor time wraith coming to kill us, which had to cut the discussion short. So that was, it had a lot of elements and was enjoyable to play.
Well, the show rightly has a reputation for being uplifting. It's very fun. It has levity, but it also has heartbreaking moments. And I think last week's episode, The Runaway Dinosaur, directed by Kevin Smith, is such a fantastic example of that. Do you think that you attribute some of the success of The Flash to the fact that it is joyful? It has that hope. It is light at times. It is fun.
I wouldn't be able to answer to the alchemy. I sort of proceed from the idea that most shows that you do will just get canceled in a heartbeat, and I don't profess to know why the ones that go. Certainly, we're grateful for whatever chemistry we have going that is propelling it forward, but it's the audience is the determinant for whatever show succeeds or doesn't. And I think that one of the things that possibly or potentially they've tapped into is like at least every episode we try and give you something. There's a danger sometimes when you do a pilot that's picked up and it's successful that, we better repeat that. And we're aided on a number of fronts that we don't have to do that. One is that there's decades worth of mythology that we can tap into that we know the audience is always aware of and already aware of. And so we can proceed down what might seem like crazy pathways, and yet we are confident the audience will be with us. The other thing that we try and do on the show specifically is every episode, it's got the spectacle, but then we're always careful to add 2 elements which I think are very important. One is heart, the Barry Allen and the mother moment, the poignancy of that. The other is humor, like Wells and Cisco going off on each other. And I've always felt that humor is when it's unexpected or in a venue that maybe it's not anticipated, is one of the quickest ways to win an audience over. I remember watching the first Iron Man in this sort of like genre where you saw Robert Downey Jr. and Gwyneth Paltrow, with a sort of a 40s romantic back and forth that was elevated and smart and funny and done by good actors. And I thought, this is the ingredient that beyond all the spectacle is going to win in the day, I think. Not that we're on that level, but we certainly try.
Well, from the Speed Force to bite-sized fast food. You do the podcast, Mike and Tom
Nice segue.
Eat Snacks. Thanks, I worked on that one for you. Mike and Tom Eat Snacks on the Nerdist Podcast Network, where you and Michael Ian Black talk about and eat snacks. What was the snack that, I know you worked on a lot of projects together. What was the snack that bonded you?
So for people unfamiliar, this is with what Aaron's talking about. This is a podcast on Nerdist and iTunes called Mates, M-A-T-S, Mike and Tom Eat Snacks. It's inventive, get it? And that's about the level of humor we play at. But what we do is every week we operate from the PER system. We pick a snack, we eat the snack, we rate the snack. And every week is a different snack. And why we chose that is when you work, like The Flash is a perfect example, when you work on a show that goes for a bit, Michael and I met on a show called Ed, we did movies together and some theater and some stand-up. We really like each other, and you want to work with the people that you like, but it's a rarity that you get a chance. Everyone's always like, oh, we're going to work together again, and it just never happens, And so we were like, what can we do that will guarantee us sitting down every week? We're like, we could do a podcast. And then the next question was, well, what are we good at? So Mike and Tom Eat Snacks. One of our favorite times or favorite moments when we would work together was always lunch. And Michael would have a countdown, 2 hours to lunch, 1 hour to lunch. What do you think the soup will be? And then when we would sit down to lunch, we would have characters we'd play. We'd have like lonely guy who's like sitting off in the distance, We had like garrulous guy. I don't think that those guys, the Mets aren't going to take anything. The Mets aren't going to do anything this year. I'll tell you why they're not going to do anything. And we had different guys that we would play. And then so that became our podcast. We did the first one for Comedy Central. And we were like standing on the street down here at Hudson. And the first one was Cheetos. And Michael looked at me and he was like, is this anything? And I was like, no. But what we underestimated is how much America loves their snacks. And it just took off to the point where, we used to go and pick the snack of the week, Cheetos, whatever. And then suddenly we had a deluge of companies sending us snacks to review. And we were like, we're going to rip you, right? And they were like, we don't care. Free publicity. And so it's mushroomed into this thing thanks to, people's love of snacks. It's one of our favorite things to do. It's not the way Lance Armstrong was not about the bike. This is also oftentimes not about the snack. It's a very R-rated and it's not for your children kind of podcast. One of my favorite episodes, because we're talking about acting, is episode 27, Lorna Doone, Shortbread Cookies, wherein Michael talks about how Ian McShane of Deadwood screwed him out of the sheriff role for Deadwood. It's a classic insider story, so hopefully that'll whet your appetite and we'll have some more viewers, not viewers, as we go on.
Mm-hmm. Well, since you're Canadian, what is the snack that you wish Americans...
Poutine.
Poutine doesn't count as a snack. That's like a whole meal.
Well, poutine, anybody? Yeah?
Oh, I'm a fan.
Poutine is cheese curd, hot gravy, and fries. It's you can have like a bowl of that, and it'll that's the classic. I think this is why naps were invented. Yeah. So certainly that would be at the forefront.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just wish ketchup potato chips were.
Well, everyone says that. The Lay's ketchup potato chips. It's funny, we filmed The Flash up in Vancouver, and, I sort of, to my cast members, they're like, that's not a thing. The cast members are all American, and I was like, that is a thing. And not only that, try them. Has anybody tried ketchup potato chips? There's like one hand went up.
Oh, you're
and
missing out.
that, by the way, is the very definition of smattering, what you just did. You're like, should we clap for ketchup potato chips? Anybody? They're worth trying. That's all I got to say. I love that somehow we got there.
Yeah.
Ketchup potato chips.
I try to work it into every interview. Yeah. It just helps that you have a snack podcast.
It helps that I have a snack podcast, yeah.
What so far has been the most exotic thing that you have been, you've talked about on the podcast?
Well, we had some Denmark snacks, yeah. And very good licorice chocolate. And we also had some kind of buttercream thing that had been expired for... We like to try, we find like the best way to improve our ratings is to try the dangerous snack. Here's the most dangerous thing we've done. I'm deathly allergic to avocado. And the quickest way to get Michael and I on our side is to insult us. And this one guy was like, hey assholes, I'm Mexican. You guys don't know how to make guacamole. I'm gonna come on board your snack and make guacamole. And then we were like, bring it. I mean, you're calling us pendejos. It's like, all right, bring it. So he came into studio and he mixed up, and I didn't tell anyone that this would kill me. And so 25 minutes in, when he'd made his guacamole and we'd finished lobbing insults at each other, I tried it. And what's funny about allergy, which I don't think I was that aware of, it can get worse over time. Mm-hmm. And you can listen to the podcast. I'm like down on the floor, and Michael's actually concerned. He's like, can you breathe? Like I'm sweating, and my throat filled up, and I'm on the floor, and it's anaphylactic. It was just, it was real drama. So there you go. All that in the name of art and snacks.
That's a great podcast. I don't know how you'll ever top that particular episode.
Yeah, I don't think that we will. Near-death experiences on a snack game podcast is that's high range, but it's nice to set a high bar and then strive for it.
Yeah, should have saved that one for Podcast Sweeps Week. I don't know if that exists, but
yeah.
Well, you're on a show with superheroes, but you're actually married to a bit of a superstar in the sports world who has a news website, right?
Yes.
Players Tribune.
So this is the Players Tribune. And Players Tribune, I just hope the Players Tribune gets more hands up than Lay's potato chips. This is So my wife worked as a picture editor for Sports Illustrated. She put Derek Jeter. Derek Jeter? Okay, all right, that's better. So Derek Jeter and my wife started this website called the Players Tribune, which is essentially this. In the world of sports, instead of you interviewing me as a sports guy, I tell the story firsthand myself. And so when Kobe Bryant announces his retirement, he announces it on the Players Tribune. When a player missed his prom and decides to throw his prom, Players Tribune goes to shoot it, and he talks about what the prom was like in his own words, and they shoot it, show the pictures up there. And what's interesting to me is to watch the segue from old media to new media. Like the Players Tribune, part of its genius shows the humanity of athletes. If you listen, here's a perfect example. This a fellow that used to play here and work in New York City, Brendan Shanahan, who now runs the Toronto Maple Leafs, wrote a letter to his younger self, and they do this feature called Letter to Your Younger Self. You can see that this is ripe for comedy, but do yourself a favor and check out Letter to My Younger Self, where he's like, here's what you do. You're going to take the shot to the head, but everyone's going to like you. You're dumb. It's all evocative and funny and good. And I think it makes us see the sports world. I think the sports world is very protected by agents and money and the pathways that already exist. And this offers up some relatability and humanity to it. It's well worth checking out. The Players Tribune.
Players Tribune.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw it to audience questions in a second, but first, a couple more flash questions. First off, the multiverse. There are an infinite amount of Harrison Welleses out there.
Yes, there are.
So,
when do you see Wells from Earth 52?
It's I want...
He's the guy that talks in a Cockney accent, but you can't really understand. Oh, so I'm talking to Barry. Oh, so I'm invited to go to your mate. Oh, so I'm oh, come here, mate. Right, am I right? Don't we want to see that Harrison Wells?
Yeah, I want to. That's what I was going to ask, yeah.
Yeah, exactly right. Oh, surprise, there's going to be an explosion. Oh, I'm sorry if he's dead.
As long as he still has the pulse
Fast,
pipe.
man, fast! Yeah, fast, man, fast! Yeah, we'll get there.
And in addition to that, you've mentioned that there's extreme payoff in the finale, and we have 2 episodes left. And
Here's the thing: I wasn't going to do this.
About it.
I will tell you the one thing that I'm not supposed to do this, but
you won't tell anyone, will you? Hey, well,
just don't tell anyone.
Internet.
In the season finale, and this is all just going to stay in this room. We killed Jon Snow. That's between us. All right, that doesn't leave this room.
All right.
Okay.
Quiet, internet. But no, you had a scene that's actually in the finale, correct? That has sort of been held off for a while. That you were kind of excited about.
Yeah. I don't know how much we can't really say anything about it, but in the season finale in the first one, the nice thing that I thought that the writers did was you can't really do the Flash without the Flash. It seems to me, I don't think a show called The Flash without the Flash in it works. And yet, Barry was in Tough last year against me, and I was about to kill him and kill everyone else, and a gunshot rings out, and an ancestor of mine shoots himself and kills the bloodline, and by so killing himself, evaporates me.
As you do.
As one does. Yeah. And it was inventive. I thought I didn't see it, because you knew ultimately you watch these things and you know that the heroes got to win, but this way of fashioning it I thought was very inventive, and I feel in the second season, with this season finale coursing toward us, I think there's going to be, for the people who watch the show, I think they'll be equally rewarded this year.
All right. Well, let's throw it to an audience question.
Hi.
Hey,
Tom.
nice shirt.
Thank
For
you.
those who can't see, he's wearing a Reverse Flash shirt. Tremendous.
You're awesome on
Where'd
Flash,
you get
by
that
the way.
shirt? Is that my shirt? Is that from my wardrobe?
So my question is, if you could time travel, where and when would you go?
That's a tremendous question. I've been asked this question before, and I find it always interesting to do this. Are you ready? Where would you go?
I would want to see dinosaurs. So.
See? That's can we cut to, if we could put this together, if I was editing this thing, it would be like I would want to see dinosaurs. Bang! You in front of a Tyrannosaurus Rex. You're like, oh, mistake, mistake, mistake. Fade to black. And scene.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Just
We're not going to do better than that with anything
Yeah.
I say. You're the star of that question.
Just don't step on any butterflies when you travel back to see the dinosaurs. I hear
Exactly
that's
right.
bad-
It's like,
bad
oh
news.
no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello. So we've seen Harry as kind of a father and a pulse rifle wielding, king shark shooting vigilante and a scientist. But I teach a class in business writing, and I was kind of wondering, what is he like as a CEO of Star Labs?
First off, you're well spoken. Second off, if you're looking to do some press agent stuff for The Flash, we can use you. And that was very erudite. I'm sure the people that you're currently employed with aren't going to let you go, but we have so much money. You can be bought, right? Yeah. Meanwhile, back at the question. As a CEO, that kind of thing that you just saw, enabling, but who's got the final call? Me. I'm not going to make a big deal out of it, but as CEO of Star Labs, it's like, I don't want people mucking stuff up. We were talking about earlier, it's like, this is basically, let me sum up, as CEO as the guy who runs Star Labs, this is what you see all the time, in a nutshell. Me saying, I'm telling you it'll work. 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 We do it. See? That's basically, we have four acts out of 5 with them going, it'll kill Barry. It's terrible. We can't do it. And me going, I'm telling you it'll work. And then in the 5th act, we do it, and it's fine. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Good.
Hey, Tom, over here.
Hey,
I really love your arc in this season. So I know you got a chance to cross over with Arrow. So is there a chance that you want to cross over to another DC TV show?
the problem with that is I think those shows want to stay on the air. And so I don't know that me going and doing that thing is the best thing for them. I think the best thing that they can do, as witnessed by the ratings bonanza that Supergirl experienced when Grant Gustin went over, is to send the kid over. Get the guy in the red suit, not the guy in the yellow suit over there, and don't let this guy wreak havoc. Have the red suit guy go and make nice, and suddenly the ratings jump. So that's sort of like that's our plan of attack right now.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And awesome that Supergirl is part of CW now officially.
Yeah,
so,
poor
yeah,
Supergirl.
give it up for Supergirl too.
Yeah.
And this is going to be our final question.
I am here in the front.
Hey.
How are you, Tom?
I see it. You stood up. You're in front. I know you're in the. I mean, you can see you.
I'm a big fan of you and the character you play, Harrison Wells. Well, first I want to know, are you guys hiring at Star Labs or
Are we what?
hiring?
Sure, you're hired. You know what we need? Honestly, at Star Labs, we need someone to vet the people that just walk right into the darn place. Everyone's just kind of walking right into the cortex. They just like walk in and they heard the last thing you're saying, like, that's not a good idea. And you're like, what? Huh? So we need someone downstairs at security. I mean, I don't know if that's like your taste in things, but we need someone like manning the desk a little bit. We need people like here at AOL, like they sign in and here's the ID. I don't know what the heck. People are just waltzing in at all hours of the day. So if you're willing to do that, we can hire you.
We just had the Shark Tank guy. How much are you paying?
How much? Listen, I'm telling you, we're made of money over there at the CW. It's like, and it's not my money, so like whatever you call a number, it's yours.
My question I want to ask you is,
But that wasn't your question.
no,
I don't know.
that was
I don't
just
know.
for my benefit.
You were
Don't know that
already
we can do-
hired. What else could you want?
Don't know that we can do better than that. We just hired you and gave you $1 million, but all right.
All right, you're fired now.
Go ahead. What were you saying?
Oh, I wanted to know if you could pick the way you were portrayed as Harrison in Earth 1 and Earth 2. Which one do you like better? Do you like playing the bad guy or the good guy?
It's an interesting question. Like I said earlier, the nice thing about Earth, or the Earth One guy, is he was masking the most evil guy, and the reason that I signed on to the show is to play the Reverse Flash. So that's always the goal, to do that. The nice thing about the second season was, he was a bit of a bitch, wasn't he? I mean, he's a malcontent. He doesn't have any graces and social. And I think our show, I'm not trying to give myself any credit whatsoever, but when you have a daily antagonist, that actually works well, because Caitlin is so intelligent, and Cisco is just so great, and Barry is so winning. And after a while, you're going to need someone who's like, maybe not so great. And I'm happy to play that role.
Mm-hmm. But you get better suits as Eobard Thawne,
Exactly
a nice
right,
yellow one, anyhow.
Yeah, exactly right.
Well, that brings us to the end of our AOL build. However, tonight, The Flash airs on the CW, and next week is the Season 2 finale, so you want to check that out as well. Guys, you have been great. Internet, hello, and please give it up for Mr. Tom Cavanagh!